So the ultimate return on investment. Obviously, this means something very concrete in the business context, but everybody who's up here is in wellness, so they're going to have an interesting, unique spin on that, but is also an entrepreneur and business people, et cetera, coming from all different walks of life. So I guess the most general kind of open-ended way to launch into this discussion is just to ask, like, what does that mean to you? What does the ultimate return on investment mean to you? Like, how do you define that for yourself through the prism of the work that you do and how you live your personal life? Why don't we just throw it out to anybody who feels inspired to take the first crack at it?
So, I would start by, what does investment mean? Investing is a process where you use resources, usually it's money, but it could also be time and love, to attempt to get some sort of profit. And profit is a material gain, again, often seen as money. But if you remove the money word from both, it's a process of trying to gain material advantage. So let's say I do breath work or I exercise. I use my time, my love, my resources outside of money to get an advantage. And the advantage, for example, could be that I sleep better. So that is how I look at it. And when I think of material advantage, not being sick, I'm fortunate enough, in September, I've been 12 years without being one day sick. So it's an advantage. What do you lose in your life quality when you're even one day sick? And I'm fortunate enough to have that. Not everybody has that possibility, but I think we can all stack the odds in our favor, whatever our baseline is, and to fit our lifestyle. And doing that process for that material advantage is how I look at it. But
so let me just say before I get into you, Shaman Durek, Tero's business is Four Sigmatic, and that's a specific product that is packaged, it's shipped, he's got people that work for him, but that's very different from what Shaman Durek does. His product is more ethereal, shall we say.
So when I think the question is the ultimate return on an investment, you know, I think from the moment that I arrived on this planet, it was very clear to me that we are here to truly be leaders. And so for me, in everything that I do, if it's my words, if it's the food I'm putting in my body, if it's the way I'm hugging someone, if it's the way that I'm having a conversation with them, it's the way I'm picking up my clothes from the cleaners and how I treat that person at the cleaners, or the Uber driver, or the person who's serving me food at the restaurant. To me, there is an investment. The investment, it does for me, is not about the return. The investment is about the expansion. The expansion is what creates the return, where I don't have to think about it because it's sustainable. It sustains me because everyone is being filled. And that person who's at the cleaners, who was given that love and that kindness and that generosity, they begin to share that with their children, perhaps their wife, perhaps the next person. That person could be having a difficult day. That person then gets that energy. So for me, if we step into the idea of investment, I would say my life source, my life energy, my love, everything, my breath, everything is, to me, the ultimate investment. And the return is to see our world free.
Follow that, Allie.
I don't know how to do that. Thank you. I love you too. I think that there's so much to be said about how we take care of ourselves in this day and age, and how difficult it is sometimes to find the time to invest in ourselves, because you have to heal yourself in order to heal other people in the world, so they say. And understanding how to give yourself time and permission, for me, it can be sometimes very challenging. I've personally been going through a very, very challenging time right now as a mother, as a very busy business person. as a partner with a successful artist. I mean, it's difficult to find the time to put into myself, but what I realize is that, gosh, if I don't show up as a whole and well and healthy person, then no one's getting a return on anything. So, and my daughter and my husband and myself deserve to have a rich, full, whole, healthy person. So I take myself out of that sometimes. It's easier for me sometimes to invest in myself if I think about it that way. And it can be very difficult sometimes to put that time and investing into healing and to, you know, taking care of yourself. And that's what we mean about investment, is giving love, giving yourself love first. And you need to I need to put the oxygen mask on first. So understanding that investing in myself, in my body, and in my mind, and in my soul will ultimately give not only my personal body an amazing return, but the people around me, and when I do that, they will give that to the people around them. So it is sort of like a ripple in the pond, and to be responsible for throwing the stone first.
Yeah, I love that. I think that there's a perspective or sensibility that to put yourself first is self-indulgent, it's selfish, and there's an adage in the kind of wellness entrepreneur community that what can happen if you're not attending to that is that all this wellness can make you very unwell, right?
Right.
When your world is wellness and yet you're not a living, emblematic example of what it is that you're trying to put out in the world, then how successful are you really?
It's a lot of pressure, though, and I think that there's really something to be said on being a little bit less rigid with the whole wellness idea. And I think that there's a lot of forgiveness and fluidity that needs to come into this world a bit more, and that we don't have to do everything perfectly, because life is not perfect. We as humans are not perfect. I am not going to do my job at healing perfectly. And understanding that and being okay with that is the lesson.
How about you?
Just want to echo what you're just saying. I think for me that word is grace, and just allowing yourself to be okay and also giving it to others, so on that path too. But I think as far as just what does ultimate return on investment mean to me, I think some folks have already said it as well. It's about the process. And ultimately, from your investment, you want the maximized return. But for me, that process is service and love, like others have said. And I think for me, the result or the return is the impact. Are you leaving a legacy? Are you, impacting someone's day, as Shaman Durek said? So definitely subscribe to that as well.
Yeah, so super interesting question. Kind of scares the shit out of me a little bit. So yeah, well, I'm not really sure how to answer it, but my truth around return and investment, I guess if you look at, why do people make investments in anything, right? Like if we take money, for example, right? What does money allow us to buy, right? It allows us to buy things that we want, right? That we think we want or that we need. And we want these things because of the feelings they give us, right? They make us happy, or they support us in whatever we're doing in our mission and our purpose in the world. So to me, return on investment, if you kind of take out all those intermediary steps, is really about what drives our purpose, what drives meaning for us, what drives our happiness, our joy, our health. And the investment for me is time and energy, right? At the end of the day, that's just what money represents, is time and energy. So how are we spending this infinite time and energy that we have, in every moment of every day? Are we spending it on things that we think we want to fulfill something in us that we think is missing? Or can we just spend our time and energy pursuing joy and meaning and purpose and happiness? And for me, like, the businesses that I've created are an extension of that, right? They're really a vehicle to serve purpose and to find meaning and happiness.
It's interesting. The idea of investment and return, it's a very binary, like almost mathematical equation. And just reflecting on that for myself, like, I don't really think in those terms. I don't think, well, if I do this, then I'm going to get this. I find that the more process-oriented I am and the less outcome or results-driven that I am, not only am I happier and more productive, ultimately I'm more successful. So the more that you can kind of fall in love with process and not think of it in terms of an investment, that you're doing it only because you're going to get this out of it, I think that's a indication that you're on a track that, or a trajectory that's better for you. So I would just toss this, probably Shaman Durek, you're the best person to kind of toss this little spiritual football over to for your reflections on that.
So what was the thing that you
There
were
was no
talking
question. Pontificate, my friend, on the journey.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah.
on investments or just anything?
More on the I guess what I'm getting at is transcending this binary equation of like investment
got it,
return
okay, got
or
it,
process
got it.
result.
So, this is how I look at it. We were brought into a world that created currency as a way to understand our worth and our value. Why? Because we lost that attention, that focus, that devotion of seeing that our worth and our value had never left us. So the idea that we needed to antiquate something as an outward experience, such as money or some kind of way to accumulate some identity of the value of something, has created a lot of discord and destruction on our planet. Because we've become a species that constantly seeks the validation, the accolades, and the identification of worthiness from other people instead of sustaining that within the nuclei of our own spiritual wellness. So that truly begins to represent the way in which we put our attention onto things. Because attention truly is, it is literally you buying your energy into something. And we've become so distracted with not having the devotion or the awareness and the acuity to understand that my intention is a value onto myself. So what I choose to put my attention on, if I'm giving you my attention, know that you are valuable. And if I don't put my attention on, it's because I seek no value in that which I am putting my attention on, because it is not giving me substance. It is not giving me life. It is not giving me nutrients. It is not giving my modus operandi, my mind, this beautiful flourish of words and information and data streams that allow me to act in a way in the world that allows me to create change and bring a consciousness to my brothers and sisters to see their own leadership and their own power within themselves without creating a codependent way in which we operate with one another. So I think that as we begin to step into this understanding of when we anchor in a new paradigm, the paradigm is already here, right? It's just asking us to remove the distraction of the idea that your value is when you work hard, you got to get something. You know, that old, like my dad would always say, like, money doesn't grow on trees. And I'm like, well, maybe for you it doesn't. But if I want it to, I'll make it grow on trees, because your reality is not my reality. My reality is based in the idea of service, and through that act of true devotional alignment service. And let me just explain to you what that means, just to give you kind of a little understanding. A lot of people operate in the idea that fear is their motivator. I got to pay the bills. I got to do this. I got to have this. I even have people come to me who are my clients who will say to me, well, I'm working so hard because I don't want my business to fail. I'm like, well, you just already failed because you created the door of possibility. That door of possibility is everything, my loves. It's everything. The fact that you as a creator, a quantum creator, created a door of failure to even exist within your mind, exist within the idea that it's possible. Right there, you've already lost. It's like the Wheel of Fortune. That game show scares the crap out of me, because I see that wheel going around and I'm like, why would you play that game? It's like bankruptcy, 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 bankruptcy. I don't want that. So I think what happens is we become so much looking for validation of what we are and what we can create, and we antiquate it through money. We antiquate it people saying, oh my God, you're so amazing, how many likes you have on Instagram, how many followers you have. We antiquate all these false values of the human spirit and what we're capable of, and then we get lost. And that's where we have the power to pull our attention back. We always talk about set your intention. Forget your attention. Where's your attention?
You know, it's so interesting. Yeah. Do you get tired after you speak? Okay.
I get lit. I'm lit.
Yeah, lit. You go, woo! I know, that's like when I'm on stage, I'm like that too, like, this is so
You chose to follow him again.
What?
You chose to speak right after him again, 2 times.
I know, but
Fearless.
Yeah, very fearless. But this is the thing, listen, trust me, I have gone into like doctors and healers being like, my intention is to get completely rid of Lyme disease, or to be completely free, or to get rid of this problem, or blah, 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 blah. And what I learned is by setting those intentions up for myself, I already have created failure instead of living in the moment of the process, because that's where the healing lies. So you spoke about that, and I mean, I'm not perfect at that either. Like, that's the thing, is we just have to like let go of all these expectations for ourselves. And I'm probably never gonna be vegan, you guys. I just can't do it. I'm sorry. It's just not my thing. I can't do it. I love and respect everyone that does it, but right now it is not and that's okay. And I'm okay with being okay with that. But there are certain things where I'm not gonna set myself up for failure and put all these expectations on myself, because they don't even exist. So like leaning into the process of it and sharing my honest experience to give people permission to do the same for themselves, that is what I'm doing now for people. Like, I think. Am I? I don't even know.
I think you are. You're doing it right now.
Who am I?
Yeah. How long do you have to answer that question?
Oh, honey, I've got my whole
Yeah.
life to answer that question.
Who are you? Said the caterpillar to Alice.
I know.
So, Tero, I want to turn to you for a moment. We were talking a little bit earlier when we caused a little disruption over here earlier. Sorry about that.
Sorry about that.
We hadn't seen each other in a while. And I said to Tero, wow, like, it's great to see you. The company seems to be doing great. And I used the phraseology, like, you guys look like you're crushing it out there. And you laughed. And I think that's apropos of the subject matter that we're talking about here today, which is having a higher calling, being in it for the long run, being anchored in the moment, being purpose-driven, really having a trajectory of meaning to leave a legacy for the work that we all do, that we care about so much about. So maybe share a little bit about what we talked about with respect to that.
Sure. Before I go there, I just want to talk about this money grows on trees, because I'm right looking at this cacao. This cacao grows on trees. It was used as a currency. So this whole notion of value is, I think, fascinating. And I think out of all the plants that, like, particularly Theobromine cacao kind of somehow symbolizes, like, how we've lost it. Like, what is this whole money or value anyway? But yeah, to your question, it's funny when you grow up doing something or something you've done for a long time, let's say yoga or breath work or working with spirituality, and then at some point somebody acknowledges it externally, it hasn't really changed anything in your habits. So in my case, like the external factors of my company or something, suddenly you go to a grocery store and somebody recognizes you, but you're still the same guy doing the mushrooms and walking the forest. But how it relates to this conversation, I think there's some great points. I think Ali's case here is pretty obvious. Like, why would you invest in wellness if you're in pain, for example? When you're sick, when you have the sniffles, or when you have something more serious, it's a no-brainer. Not you or someone else gonna question, why do you go to events? Why do you read these books? Why do you buy those odd supplements? Why do you do this breath work? It's clear, because if you're in pain and you have a clear need. I think where it gets more fascinating, where I don't know if anybody of you have a loved one, maybe a parent, maybe a friend, who's like, when you're doing this preventative work, and when you're doing this like lifestyle purpose work, and you're focusing on, and you're doing these things, and they're like, why would you do those? Like, what's the point? Why are you investing time, money, energy, passion, all the values that we talked about to learn new things? And again, journaling, breath work, going to seminars, learning from other people, eating healthy, buying organic. Is that organic even good for you? You know, superfoods, what are those? Adaptogens. And I look at it from 2 points. Why are we doing this? One is the opportunity cost. I studied chemistry and nutrition, but then when I started a business, I felt like I needed to get an MBA, which was the dumbest thing I ever did. But there I learned about opportunity cost. So it's like you have an alternative. So I've always thought it's like, if I have time, money, and resources, where else would I spend them? I haven't yet come up with a much better answer than wellness. It's like, if I have time to spend on something like health, love, community, learning, growing, I haven't figured out a better answer. The other way to look at it is the benefits I get is one of my favorite wellness practices. I take a 20-minute nap on a nail bed. There's like 5 days a year when I don't do it, and they're the worst days of the whole year. And the amount of energy, if I would have spent that 20 minutes answering emails, being on phone calls, doing whatever I do, versus that 20-minute nap, and the amount of energy, focus, and drive I get. And it also has made my life way more sustainable, where I can sustain passion longer. So there's these, like, I guess 80-20 things you do. So some of wellness practices I do, I don't know if they're good for me. They're kind of like an insurance policy. They're a lifestyle, because I haven't figured out yet what else would I spend that time and money on than Erwan and yoga. But then there are the kind of the 80-20 few things that are, the value is so insane, and like movement every day, or hydration, that the value is so magnificent that it kind of has a halo on anything I do, including how I show up as a friend, or as a you know, a son to my father, or whatever it may be. So those are the two things I look at, and the opportunity cost, and then the bang for the buck of doing some of those key practices. And I don't think it's nothing to do with external factors, how externally you get validated or non-validated for your hippie things or your cool things, that within your wellness practice, ignore that and just kind of focus on the internal compass and trust it and see where it takes you.
Cool. Anastasia, of everybody up here, you are more hands-on in the kind of finance, money world aspect of being in a capitalist society as an impact investor, as an angel investor. So how do you think about this terminology and legacy and, you know, being purpose-driven and all of that in the context of you know, basically being the person who can seed other people's ideas?
Yeah, I think for me, just, I guess how I like frame my values, especially in the work that I do. So I haven't always been in venture capital. I worked in nonprofit, worked for a local government, worked for City of LA for a long time. And in those jobs and in my work history, I was in a space that didn't resonate with me. And through those jobs, even though they were excruciating experiences, I began to figure out what really mattered to me, and that's what led me to the company I'm at now. And once I sort of set up those values, I was able to work in a space and work with other people who, you know, were working on awesome companies, who were similar to my background, who had the same values, as well as, again, service, leaving a legacy. And I think specifically in our space, we're really impacting those who are underrepresented, and so creating generational wealth was really important. That's something I do in my personal life, and I was able to have that transcend into my working career. So even though I'm within like venture capital and directly investing, I think, again, it comes from me participating in that space. It comes from something else. It comes from having already identified what really matters to me. So when I walk into spaces that are mostly homogenous, you know, how people look in venture capital, that's a big deal that our firm tries to directly address. I'm sure in who I am. I'm sure in who, you know, the founders that I'm representing. So that, I think, yeah, it's maybe been like a 5-year journey trying to get to this point, but it's really paid off, again, on this investment in my personal life, not just with the dollars that I get to spend, invest in other companies. And I think a big thing with Backstage Capital is is we've really tapped into this energy of being yourself, not just only focusing on the dollar, focusing on the founder as a person. Our company, ourself, is like truly focused on self-care. If you're not well, you cannot build a business. Like people are saying, you cannot show up as a friend. You can't be the full person you're meant to be. And so I feel like I'm just truly blessed to even found a place that can do all of those things and have that unique experience in venture capital.
Justin, you've had the most time to think about all of these things. You were there. So the pressure is on to just drop crazy wisdom right now.
Well, I'm just going to pop that bubble of pressure because I'm not even sure what question we're answering right now.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We're just speaking from the
All
heart
of them.
here.
Just talk.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I figured. So, you know, what's feeling inspired for me to say right now is on this idea of return on investment. I actually make the most money in my life while I'm meditating and having fun. And I've tracked this actually because I would notice that when I would get out of my meditation and eventually kind of get back to whatever I was doing, that we had like made a lot of money while I was meditating. And then, you know, and I've also noticed the same thing happening while I'm actually not working in the business, but when I'm having fun. And it's really interesting to me, and this is, you know, part of the work we do with Flow, is this idea of getting more by doing less, right? Or getting more really by following and operating from a place of joy above all else. I think that when we think about return on investment, we often think really linearly, like, well, I have to do this thing so I can have this outcome. I have to invest in this company so I can, you know, get this return, or I have to, you know, follow this health routine or eat this specific diet so I can have the thing I want. But my experience has been that reality is not quite so linear. And oftentimes the things that we do when we're acting from a place of joy and inspiration have exponentially more return than the things we do when we're coming from the mind thinking, well, I have to do this because that's what I think, right? So I've prioritized that in my life, following joy, following inspiration, following excitement, and that's had the biggest return for me. I mean, the payoffs have been extraordinary.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I'd like to kind of like expand on that and throw it out to everyone else. How do you find the joy in what it is that you do? And also, how do you think about how that meshes with the competitive aspect of being in business? I mean, everybody up here is experiencing success, and you know, you have to have some kind of internal drive to experience that, and some level of healthy ego. So how is that weighted against not just joy, but you know, humility and all these other kind of practices that allow us to function at our best?
And just build on that is very briefly, is that more is not better, better is better. So I think we often as humans forget this. We try to do more, and it's very linear, and it's often focusing on the quality versus the quantity. So that's kind of my only comment on that.
So for me, the way I look at it, how can I say? I am lit. I wake up every morning. I'll be honest. I wake up every morning. I get up super early. And then when the team gets into the office, I'm singing Disney songs. I'm dancing around the house and playing drums for everyone and chanting and for me, like, then I'll
So
take
we all feel really bad now because we can't measure up to that.
I mean, I'm just a big kid,
Yeah.
and I've never stopped being a kid. And especially in shamanism, you know, the reason why we get chosen as a shaman is that because we don't do what the tribe does. We do opposite of. We're the ones who are up late at night, searching through nature and playing and coming up and talking to the spirits and so forth. So for me, always being playful, like building forts and playing with my action figures and like playing my video games and like making sure everyone on my team is playing all day too, like taking breaks and playing and like singing songs and pounding drums and singing out loud and dancing around each other, for me is really important. And the part of the ego, the happy ego part that I get, is I get to bring magic back to this world. You know, like when I work with like major CEOs of Fortune 500 companies who will come in and like, you know, and I'll have them come in and they'll, you know, they'll pay a price to spend that time with me, but I'll throw toys on the floor and they're like, what are we doing? I thought we were doing some shamanic stuff. I'm like, this is shamanic. And I'll start playing toys with them and wait to see how they break down those walls. And then they start actually playing with me. And then 2 weeks later, getting that phone call from them and going like, you completely changed the whole way that I see everything that I'm doing. Or like, you know, when I'm dealing with people who are coming in who are like I love skeptics. Skeptics are like my favorite thing in the world. You know, because like literally I was that kid who was like, how could this world forget magic? Like, how did you get so stuck in industrial and technology that you forgot that you were the most powerful source of magic and technology on the planet? And so for me, it's like showing, like when I was just recently at the Bulletproof conference, and I took a bunch of doctors to a hotel room, and they wanted to see like shamanism. And they were like, even some of the doctors were like, oh, I'm gonna put a heart monitor on. I want you to show if you can lower our heart rate and raise it. And showing that to them and having their minds blown and going like, wait, are you telling me that there's more things that we don't know? And I'm like, yes, there is, in your face. There you go. Now let's play and let's talk. To me, that is what I enjoy the most, is seeing people come in and go, I've spent my whole life being depressed, and then teach them a shamanic technique, and then they call me and tell me depression hasn't come back, because to me, I believe in sustainability. So being able to see people bring the magic back in their lives, that's my ego right there. That's like, I get so excited. Like when someone goes, that person's a big skeptic, you know, I'm like, yeah, which way are they? Where are they? I want to go towards them. You know, and I get excited about that. I get lit about that. And I get lit about the tribe. I get lit about hearing people come to me and say, like, I just removed the headache from my daughter by using that technique that you taught me. Or I just, you know, I was just stressed out because I'm about to go do a major blockbuster film, and usually I do coke, and I stopped doing coke, Shaman, because you taught me how to deal with my stress on levels that you taught me how to hack my own body and teach me how to change and regulate my own system. To me, that's everything. That's where my ego lies. It's like fun, play, fun, magic. Moon, dance, freedom. That's it.
Cool. Beautiful. Allie, where does ego fall with you?
My ego, the ego?
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard ego is a parasite, actually, recently, which is really interesting. I mean, listen, I think that everyone, I haven't figured it out. I don't even know why you're asking me this question. We all have an ego. Listen, when I was a little girl, my dream was to become an actress, a singer and an actress. And I did plays. And the Lyme disease took that away. And I kind of put it away on the shelf. And my ego is hurt. When I had to close my clothing company, my ego was hurt. But now I get to show up for myself and be that little fairy that I am, and sprinkle my little creative happiness, bubbly light self into people's lives. When I see them receiving that, and I see them feel happy, and I see them feel like, oh, we don't have to take it all so seriously. Oh, we can have fun. Oh gosh, that's very fulfilling to me. But my ego does want to be back on a stage singing a little bit. So we'll see.
Are you able to find not just the lesson, but the gratitude in the Lyme disease journey that you've been on?
Oh my God, of course. No, of course.
Maybe speak to that a little bit.
No, yes. With every single challenge or hardship, there's always a multitude of lessons that are investments that we can use for ourselves in the future. And I'm very, very grateful for the disease, because I was able to learn how to truly heal myself on many different levels. I mean, the healing is still happening. And I'm able to evolve as a person, and I'm also able to create this arsenal of people around me, and a really heavy toolbox with incredible things that I get to share with other people. It was an opportunity for me to heal and evolve physically, spiritually, mentally, which is such a gift. And my purpose with the disease is to help people, so I wrote the book. You know, the book tour right after having the baby the timing was a little weird, but it happened, and investing that time into writing the book and going on the book tour and sharing my story very vulnerably with people was so beautiful and fulfilling. It really was. And
Because you were able to cultivate connection and community with people who are suffering.
I was able to show them that we all have some sort of suffering and that there are I was able to offer them some tools. Hopefully they were able to laugh a little bit when they read my book, because I wrote it with some humor, and to be able to share some hope. And that's my main mission, is to share hope with people and to try to find the light in their stories. So.
Beautiful. So, right now in our culture, it is very cool to be a venture capitalist. Venture capitalists are like rock stars, but it's also an industry that is, I think it's probably fair to say, very ego-driven, especially in Silicon Valley. But you're not there, you're here. So how do you think about that and how you kind of navigate what is really, I would imagine, still very much a bro culture?
Very much so, a bro culture. Again, Backstage Capital tries to be the anti of the whole bro culture. So our managing partner, Arlen Hamilton, challenges people on social media to try and, she'll give $1,000 to someone who can find the most diverse venture capital team against ours. And I don't think anyone has accepted that $1,000. So the most diverse team, which is something I'm really proud of.
Just $1,000? You guys are venture capitalists.
Out of her own pocket, I mean, not out of the fund. So yeah, $1,000, but yeah. I think, I would say, at least for myself and my firm, we look at venture capital as trying to help others get that their leg up and get that chance. We were talking about creativity and freedom in playing. Underrepresented founders and people of color and women usually don't have that chance, that freedom to say, I want to create a business. I want to try something and fail at it and not be shamed for failing at something. So I think when we think of venture capital, it's almost like, okay, let's give that founder that paintbrush, that toolbox to create whatever they want. And I think now people are finally opening their eyes. So there's this other side of venture capital. There's other people who can create businesses, and again, kind of steering away from the bro culture. Usually you go to Stanford or Harvard and you create a business or you're an engineer or something like that. There's tons of other people out there from diverse experiences who can create products and impact lives in the way that the next person to them cannot, because they didn't have that same lived experience. So I think for me, venture capital, it's a little scary sometimes. Again, with the financial aspect, I tell founders all the time, don't seek venture capital funding to validate yourself. I think that's played a huge role as far as wellness in the tech space. There are a lot of founders who are depressed, or some of them have committed suicide and those types of things because of this external pressure.
And because they're in wellness, they feel like they can't speak honestly about it.
Well, because wellness isn't talked about. Taking care of yourself first isn't talked about. Doing everything at the expense so that your business succeeds is what's preferred. No one cares how the person is actually doing. And so I feel like when you get into venture capital or accept VC dollars, you have this pressure to I have to perform because someone else has an expectation of me. Whereas if you, what we call bootstrap your company or put your own money in, you kind of have that autonomy, that freedom. When you want to grow and become a $1 billion company, sometimes folks can take on VC dollars and kind of have that exponential growth. Then it makes sense. When you're a smaller company or founder just starting out, maintain as much of that autonomy as you can. Maintain yourself so you can carry out your vision and your goal.
Justin, it's also very, very cool right now to be in a flow state. These are ideas that are rooted in ancient traditions and technologies that date back a long time, but the science has sort of finally caught up with what it means to feel present, to be engaged, and now there's people like yourself who are not only espousing the benefits of these types of practices, but are actually teaching specific methods to allow the average person to access them. So I think we're probably running out of time here, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to talk a little bit about that, which is almost like an antidote for the condition that you're speaking about with some of the founders that you come across.
Yeah, thanks. Made it easy on me that time. So, yeah, actually, I love what you were sharing, because this is something that we see, and that's that they're in this mad dash for profitability and, to get the company off the ground and to give the investors in that company a return on investment, that the founders often sacrifice their own health and well-being, and they get lost in ego and all this stuff. But the irony is that if you look into the research shows that when we're healthy, when we're happy, when we're tapped into our intuition, when we're actually in a good space, we perform better and the companies are actually more successful. So it's super ironic, I think, that you've got all this evidence that that's the case, and it's being completely ignored in that space. And so on that wavelength, actually, of all the practices that have been studied, tapping into your intuition is really one of the best ways to, move your life forward in general. But if you have a company or you're doing anything like that, it's been actually shown to make you more successful. I mean, you have people like Steve Jobs is a huge proponent of intuition. Einstein's a huge proponent of intuition. Naveen Jain, like all these ultra successful, billionaires are huge proponents of intuition, but it just kind of gets swept under the rug, and you don't really hear about it. So one of the ways that people can access that is by shifting out of the head and learning to tap into how we're feeling, right? And I was talking about this before, and letting joy and inspiration drive you, right? These are the signatures of inspiration, of intuition. And so when we follow those, it's actually a way to tap into a flow state, bring us into flow, and allow us to be more successful and impactful at the same time. So yeah, I think you totally nailed it. I mean, this is, in our opinion, this is the next generation, the new way forward, where we're not hustling and grinding, but we're showing up from a deep place of inspired purpose and creating success and impact from that spot. Yeah. So
Beautiful. Yeah, I'd love to be a fly on the wall in a conversation between the two of you guys about intuition.
Oh, yeah, I was thinking that in my head the whole time. I was like, I can't wait to have like a bro-to-bro hangout powwow. It'd be super fun.
Cool. I think we are...
Rich, can I add something
Yeah.
in there?
All right.
Is that okay?
It's okay. I was going to let everyone say a little bit in closing here, but you look like somebody who wants to have the final thing.
No,
I want to give you that. I want to give you that opportunity.
I just want to
Shaman
add
Durek.
something to everything that we were just talking about, the ego. Because in shamanism, we have the lower ego, which is basically operates from a place of insecurity. And so that ego is always about pushing people down, putting itself ahead, pushing people out of the way. And then the higher ego is always about empowering people, lifting them, shifting them, and holding space for them to see their power. So I just wanted to add
that perfectly. Beautiful. All right. Well, I think we're out of time now, but maybe everybody can kind of go down the line and let everyone know where they can find you or what's up top of mind for you right now as we close.
Don't find me, find yourself.
Yes. How can anybody say anything after that? All right, we're done. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, WITMA.